So, when I decided to share this story, I thought about starting with medical terms or a diagnosis, but none of that actually got to the beginning of this. Um, and I put some thought into it, and I actually recorded something prior, but I realized the beginning of this is simple. One day I woke up from a coma. Now, if you're picturing something cinematic, um, a slow blink, a soft violin, forget it. Waking up from a coma is more like chaos. Waking up from a coma is more like the worst prank you've ever seen or heard of. Imagine, we've probably seen it on TV. Think about it. Your friends, you passed out. Your friends glue a fake beard on. They move you into, a hospital bed. You open your eyes. Everyone's shouting at once. That's actually kind of closer to the truth now that I think about it, saying that out loud. But my coma wasn't a prank. And the irony is, when you wake up from something like that, you have nothing but questions. But your questions have to wait because first, their questions come and they come in at rapid fire. And theirs are from doctors and nurses and staff and your partner who's visibly shaken next to your bed. The questions are insane. Do you know where you are? Do you know your name? This one was honest to God. Do you know who the President of the United States is? That last one, thinking back when I was trying to figure out this video, is kind of why I decided to go the following route that you're about to hear, because there was a cruel kind of irony to that question. Because when my eyes focused, all I could see at the foot of my bed was a giant TV showing the U.S. Capitol, D.C., United States, under siege. It was images and video of mobs breaking windows, chaos unfolding. And that was because I woke up from a coma on January 6, 2021. Yeah, that January 6th, the insurrection, or depending on which version of reality you prefer, the peaceful demonstration, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. What I will say is what I saw terrified me. I couldn't scream because there is a intubation tube down my throat. But I remember looking around. The drugs were they did have my eyes fuzzy, but I remember seeing Carrie beside my bed. Her face was kind of a mix of fear and joy. It was something almost superstitious, as if she wanted to believe I was really back, but was still wondering if she was dreaming. So slowly, you're coming around, and slowly the questions from everybody, rapid fire, are coming back into focus. And that's when I realized what had happened. The simple ERCP that I went into to stabilize my MELD score, which was around 30 if I remember, which is high, had obviously gone terribly wrong. And I knew that because I could feel my body. I went in at 220 pounds. I woke up at about 150 pounds. My body was weak. I could feel it. My mind was fogged. And I didn't know it if I knew it then, but my life really had just changed for the long term. Thinking about it, just 6 weeks earlier, my life looked completely different than that hospital bed. 6 weeks earlier, I was not stretched out in a hospital bed. I was stretched out in the back of Carrie and I's Airstream. Actually, Dakota's Airstream, our puppy. If you ask her, we had bought that so she had a new bed. But the truth was, we bought it because Carrie had always had this dream of living in one ever since she met Dr. McDreamy on Grey's Anatomy. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And COVID kind of made that dream plausible. So one day I was driving down the road, coming home. It was the height of COVID. And I saw a semi truck unloading brand new Airstreams. So I pulled over into the dealer and I ran in and I said, "Are any of these for sale?" Yada, yada, yada. And I picked one up for us. If you remember, RVs were kind of impossible to find back then. And that's the part I still love to remember prior to PSC. The months before the hospital, Carrie and I traveling the Rockies, Montana down through Colorado and everywhere in between. There was the mornings with like cold, shocking river baths in the frying pan in the Roaring Fork Valley. AeroPress coffee on demand. Incredible. It was fall, so I could still remember the smell of kind of the rotten leaves, but also mixed with that beautiful kind of pine from the pine sap. There was a freedom back then. It was pointing the truck in any direction we wanted and then leaving. And then one night on a farm, on a lavender farm next to some wilds, a livestock farm, I started getting an itch. It was small at first, but by the end of the week, I wasn't sleeping. I only got 4 hours of sleep. I wasn't sleeping. My skin felt like it was on fire. It was a change. Everything changed. And I guess I should give a backstory. Carrie has this kind of affectionate appellation for me. She calls me two kinds of luck because things with me tend to swing to extremes. Unbelievably good or unbelievably bad. And that kind of blended in that thought with what was happening because one of my phobias since I was a kid was an itch I could not scratch. Literally, like, have you ever gotten an itch and you're like, I can't ignore it? That was to the umpteenth level. So when an itch that seemed harmless on day 1 progressed to day 10, I was kind of beyond desperate. I was borderline insane. Insanity was taking over, if I'm being honest. I started snapping at my friends. I was hurting inside and I was wanting to kind of externalize that pain on anyone within an earshot. It got so bad that I actually began cutting, not slicing, but like taking a knife and jamming it into where it was definitely going into muscle. I was literally puncturing my body with a knife because the pain from the knife was distracting my brain from the pain that was happening because of that itch. Now, to be clear, I wasn't suicidal. It was literally a distraction. When you scratch an itch and you kind of get pleasure. Now, amplify that by 1,000. Finally, one day, my skin started to go yellow. So, Carrie, we're in the Roaring Fork Valley, Aspen, Colorado. Carrie drove me to this tiny clinic in the Aspen Valley. It was kind of down valley. It was small. I remember the doctor who showed up looked like she just discovered downhill skiing, and at the same time, she just discovered student loans, kind of all at once. She was bright-eyed, impossibly confident, fresh probably out of residency, if I think about it, and still playing that part of, I made it, I'm a doctor now. Seriously, she had that look you get when you just accomplished a goal. But she also had that look of somebody who hasn't experienced a bad credit report yet, which teaches you humility. Anyways, I remember she kind of like burst into the room. Part clinic hero, part newly minted small town doctor. I'm really trying to build her up because she changed my life. I kind of half expected her to pull a Red Bull out of her pocket, if I'm being honest. Like yelling, I'm here to fix broken ski bones, but I'm also your medical doctor, bitches. Pardon the language. Which, to be fair, would be almost the most Aspen thing you can imagine. But she ran a few laps, stood at the edge of my chair, and I remember when her demeanor changed. She went from like, I'm a doctor, to very calm. It's like her bedside training, her bedside manner training stepped in. It was this like eerie calmness. It was somebody who knew how to focus when they had to focus. And I remember she said, I don't want to alarm you, and I'm not an expert, but I wrote a paper on this extremely rare liver disease. I don't even want to tell you what it is, but I think you have it. And of course I said, well, what is it? She said, it's called PSC. And the next thing is what really scared me. That's when it sunk in. She looked over at Carrie and said, do you guys have a car? Can you drive Aaron down to Denver, which is a 5-hour drive through the mountains? Not easy, not hard, but not like going down the street. Or should I call an ambulance? And literally that was when the proverbial rug was pulled out from under my invincibility that had carried me through my life as of that point. That's when it changed. That moment kind of split my life in two. But in truth, when I think about it, my body had been telling me this story for years. I mean, so I should have been ready. It was a new chapter. Next page, you flip it over and you go, oh, chapter 14. It's all part of the same book. When I think about it now, I think back to university. I had all the signs. I had insomnia, terrible insomnia. I've lived the last 25 years of my life on 3 hours of sleep a night, and that's not being dramatic. In college, I had stomach pain. I had itchy skin. I would literally show up to an ER. That's what we called it back then. It shows how old I am. And I had the look of a man at the end of it, you know. I'd sit in the waiting room. I'd wait for a bed. When they finally gave me a bed, I would curl into a ball. I would almost be begging for help without saying, help me. That was in the early 2000s. The medical world was a little different back then. They were wrestling with the OxyContin thing, addiction, lawsuits, that whole realization that handing out pain pills like candy had consequences. And I can remember the answer was always time and time again, your labs look fine. Then a nurse or a doctor would walk in, look at me, so I could see that, you know, like eye contact. And they'd say, just take some Tylenol. We are not going to give you any opiates. You could see what they weren't saying was, you are drug seeking. And the irony, because of OxyContin, I grew up in the 90s, I hated painkillers, pain pills. Painkillers is actually kind of scary to say when you think about it, because those pain pills were literally killing people. I saw what opiates did to families. I was absolutely terrified of them. In high school, we had lost, I think, 10 or 15 friends. You know, pain pills prescribed by a doctor led to other forms of addiction. It wreaked havoc. It really did. What they didn't know, and what I didn't know, was a lot simpler than pain pill seeking attention. You know, what they thought. My liver was failing in slow motion, literally slowly dying. And that right there is kind of why I'm doing this video series, because what I know now is PSC is rare enough that even good clinicians miss it. So the series is to map. No, the series is the map I wish I had plain English. hard truths, and the tools that kind of keep you alive long enough to use them. So in the next 3 or 4 videos, or even going on, I've been having fun with this. This has been really good for me to get this out. Here's what you should expect. Video 2, which is actually up on this YouTube channel, is me explaining in plain English, the layman's terms of what PSC is to me. What it is, what it feels like. Bile duct scarring. My coffee machine is, of course, going down. Strictures, biliary beading, MRCPs versus MRIs. When you think about the textbook version of what PSC is, it's really scary what you read online, what you see on Google. But here's what I do know. It is different for every single person. There are stereotypical instances, or like of what PSC is. Fatigue, itch, jaundice, brain fog. Those are the things that PSC does to you, how it rewrites your life. But then there's the individual journey, which is very, very different from literally every single person I've talked to. So I want to kind of go into that. I went into that. It's up. Video 3, it talked about what the chaos and what it did to me and what it does. What it's like living with uncertainty. How do you cope with monthly labs that say things like unremarkable while your body is saying something otherwise? I go into kind of why community is important as a lifeline. Why you shouldn't be scared of what you don't know. I also built out a practical kit, why I carry a folder, why I have a medical bracelet, red flags that pop up, the rules that kind of turn chaos into something you can manage, why it's been helpful. I'm currently working on a video 4. I kind of in my head, I'm calling it Dr. Google. It really is a theory of change, a talk. You have inputs versus outcomes, and are we asking the right questions? Because it's been an interesting path for me to hear doctors and EDs. They become also almost offended when you say, so I looked into X. And I'm wondering about why. It's almost like it's an insult. How dare you go to Google and then bring it to me? We got another Dr. Google in room 3. But the reality is, Google Scholar is a great tool, and it's no different than PubMD or whatever they use. Quite honestly, they just have a more in-depth understanding in how all those little pieces work together. But there's nothing wrong with advocating for yourself. There's nothing wrong with prepping yourself for when you're told an ERCP is going to be simple, something routine that they do 1,000 times. But it's different for you. It's different because of the disease. So I'm kind of excited about building out that video. And I hope you enjoy it too. And it's not to put down doctors. It's to say, look, we're all part of the same care management team. You're a part of it. I'm a part of it. My caretaker is a part of it. And it's good to prepare your plan. So if you take one thing from today, these videos are trying to help you to understand what my journey was, what PSC means to me. How did I prepare? How did I partner up? How did I push for advocacy? These aren't just theories. This isn't theoretical. It's literally how I'm still here. I think it's important that we talk to this and we talk to each other and we see things like this and we get past the esoteric verbiage that you see online from doctors trying to explain PSC, but they're explaining it to other doctors or other clinicians, and nobody's really talking about what it means for the individual journey. Nobody's talking about how hard it is, how scary it is, how hard it is, how tired you are all the time, how it breaks you, how that breaking allows you to build yourself back up to be stronger for the next time, because it's cyclical. PSC is literally that Nietzsche time is a flat circle, because you just keep kind of reliving it. It's some sick twist where it never gets better. It's just continuous. So each time around, you get a little better at how you prep for it. And I hope this video helps with some of that prep. So anyways, see you in video 2. Sorry for the noise. And actually my phone beeping and things like that. I tried doing this on a quiet Saturday morning. We'll talk to you soon.